The Massacre and Earth's Response. The stars bore witness to humanity's darkest hour. Nova Prime, once a beacon of hope and progress on the fringes of human space, now lay in ruins. The Zarkay Empire, a race of highly advanced insectoid aliens, had struck without warning or mercy. Their attack was swift, brutal, and incomprehensible in its cruelty. Commander Elena Reeves stood before the holographic display in Earth's Central Command, her fists clenched at her sides. The images flickering before her eyes told a story too horrific to comprehend. Nova Prime's cities, once gleaming metropolises, were now nothing more than smoldering craters. But it was the death toll that truly chilled her to the core. 800,000 children. Admiral Jackson Chen said, his voice barely above a whisper. They specifically targeted schools, daycares, pediatric hospitals. This wasn't just an attack. It was genocide. Elena finished, her voice cracking. She closed her eyes, fighting back tears as she thought of her sister and her young niece who had called Nova Prime home. They were among the countless lost. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the soft beeping of consoles and the occasional sharp intake of breath as the gathered military and political leaders grappled with the magnitude of the atrocity. President Lydia Ortiz, her face ashen, finally spoke. "We need to understand why. Has there been any communication from the Zarkay? Any demands or declarations?" A young intelligence officer stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Nothing direct, Madam President, but we've intercepted some of their internal communications. It seems they view us as a potential threat to their dominion. The attack on Nova Prime was meant to, in their words, cull the human infestation before it spreads." Elena felt a surge of rage course through her body. Infestation. They murdered children to send a message. Admiral Chen placed a calming hand on her shoulder, but his own eyes blazed with a cold fury. The Zarkay Empire has been expanding unchecked for centuries. We've had reports from other species, refugees fleeing their advance. They don't conquer. They exterminate. President Ortiz leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly on the table before her. "Options. I need options. We can't let this stand, but we're talking about an empire that spans half the galaxy. We've barely taken our first steps into interstellar space." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices. Some argued for immediate retaliation, others for seeking allies among other spacefaring races. A few even suggested capitulation, hoping to negotiate some form of coexistence. Elena listened to it all, her mind racing. She thought of her sister, of her niece who would never see her 6th birthday. She thought of the millions of families torn apart, of the future that had been stolen from an entire generation. And in that moment, she knew that humanity could not afford to be timid. "We fight," she said, her voice cutting through the din. All eyes turned to her. "We fight with everything we have. Not just for vengeance, but for survival. The Zarkay have made it clear. There's no coexistence with them. It's us or them." Admiral Chen nodded slowly, a grim smile forming on his weathered face. "Commander Reeves is right, but we can't fight them conventionally. We need to be smarter, more adaptable. We need to hit them in ways they won't expect." He stepped to the central holodisplay, bringing up a galactic map. "I propose Operation Nemesis, the multi-pronged approach combining guerrilla tactics, technological innovation, and diplomatic outreach to other species who suffered under Zarkay oppression." As Chen outlined his plan, Elena felt a glimmer of hope kindle in her chest. It was audacious, perhaps even desperate, but it played to humanity's strengths: adaptability, ingenuity, and an indomitable will to survive against all odds. President Ortiz listened intently, her expression grave but resolute. When Chen finished, she stood, looking each person in the room in the eye. "What we're contemplating. It's not just a war. It's a fight for the very survival of our species. If we commit to this, there's no turning back. We will likely suffer losses that will dwarf even what happened on Nova Prime." She paused, taking a deep breath. But we cannot allow such an atrocity to go unanswered. We cannot cower in fear while a hostile power decides whether our children have the right to exist. If we don't stand now, we may never get another chance. The president's gaze fell on Elena. Commander Reeves, you've suffered a personal loss in this attack. I won't order you to be part of this operation, but if you're willing, I believe your insight and your motivation could be invaluable. Elena straightened, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. Madam President, Admiral, I'm not just willing. I volunteer to lead the first strike team. The Zarkay need to learn that when you wound humanity, when you spill the blood of our innocent, you've sealed your own fate. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. Then it's settled. We'll begin preparations immediately. The Zarkay think they've broken our spirit, that we'll fade quietly into the void. They're about to learn how gravely mistaken they are. As the meeting adjourned and leaders rushed to their respective tasks, Elena remained before the holographic display. She stared at the image of Nova Prime, now nothing more than a scared and lifeless rock. I promise you, she whispered to the ghosts of the fallen, your deaths will not be in vain. We will avenge you, and we will ensure that no other world suffers your fate. With a final, determined nod, Elena turned and strode from the room. The die was cast. Humanity would not go gently into the night. They would rage against the dying of the light, and the galaxy would never be the same. Preparations and first strike. The next 6 months saw humanity transform itself with a speed and determination that would have seemed impossible before the Nova Prime massacre. Every aspect of society was mobilized towards a single goal: survival against an implacable foe. Commander Elena Reeves found herself at the heart of this whirlwind of activity. Operation Nemesis had moved from concept to reality with breathtaking speed, and she now stood before a group of the most elite soldiers Earth had to offer. You've all seen the briefings, Elena began, her voice carrying across the cavernous training facility. The Zarkay are technologically advanced, numerically superior, and utterly ruthless. By all conventional metrics, this war is unwinnable. A ripple of tension passed through the assembled troops. Elena allowed herself a grim smile. Fortunately, humanity has never much cared for conventional metrics. We're not here to fight a conventional war. We're here to rewrite the rules of engagement. She gestured, and a holographic display sprang to life behind her, showing schematics of advanced weaponry and stealth systems. Thanks to round-the-clock efforts from our best scientific minds, we've made breakthroughs that would have taken decades under normal circumstances. Dr. Aisha Patel, the lead scientist of Project Prometheus, stepped forward. Her eyes were sunken from months of sleepless nights, but they burned with an intense fire. We've reverse-engineered several key components of Zarkay technology from debris recovered from Nova Prime. More importantly, we've improved upon them. She manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on what looked like a standard assault rifle. This is the XM-12 Phantom. It incorporates a miniaturized cloaking field, allowing for near-perfect optical and thermal camouflage. Its ammunition is designed to bypass Zarkay energy shields, delivering a payload that disrupts their unique biology. Elena watched as the soldiers leaned forward, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of awe and anticipation. She knew that look well. It was the same one she saw in the mirror every morning. The desire for payback, tempered by the weight of humanity's survival resting on their shoulders. You'll be spending the next month training with these new systems, Elena continued. You'll eat, sleep, and breathe this technology until it becomes an extension of your own bodies. Because when we strike, we'll have one shot at this. We have to make it count. As the troops dispersed to begin their training, Admiral Chen approached Elena. Impressive speech, he said quietly. How are you holding up? Elena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm focused on the mission, sir. Personal feelings don't enter into it. Chen's weathered face softened slightly. They do, Elena. That's what makes you human. It's what separates us from the Zarkay. Just Don't let it consume you." Before Elena could respond, an aide rushed up, his face flushed with excitement. "Commander, Admiral, we've got something. The deep space listening posts have picked up Zarkai communications. We've located one of their forward operating bases, just at the edge of what used to be Nova Prime's solar system." Chen and Elena exchanged a look. This was the opportunity they'd been waiting for. "Prep the team," Chen ordered. "We move in 48 hours." The next 2 days were a blur of final preparations and briefings. Elena stood in the hangar bay of the UES Nemesis, Earth's most advanced stealth frigate, watching as her strike team made final equipment checks. "This is it, people," she said, her voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. "Operation Nemesis begins now. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we show these bastards that humanity is not to be trifled with." The journey to the Zarkai base was tense, filled with an electric silence. As they approached, Elena marveled at the alienness of the Zarkai construction. The base was a sprawling, organic-looking structure that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Cloaking systems engaged. The ship's AI announced, "We are undetected." Elena nodded to her team. "Remember your training. Stick to the shadows. Use your phantoms. And for God's sake, watch each other's backs. The future of our species rides on this mission's success." They deployed from the Nemesis with practiced precision, their cloaking fields rendering them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Elena led the way, her heart pounding as they breached the outer defenses of the Zarkai base. Inside, the architecture was even stranger, a disorienting mix of biological and technological elements that seemed to defy human understanding. But Elena and her team had trained for this. They moved like ghosts through the alien corridors, planting charges at key structural points and gathering vital intelligence. It wasn't until they reached the central command node that things went sideways. A Zarkai warrior, larger and more heavily armored than the others they'd encountered, seemed to sense their presence despite their cloaking fields. "Contact!" Elena shouted as the massive alien bore down on them, its mandibles clicking in what might have been anticipation or rage. The air filled with the sound of phantom rifles discharging. The Zarkai shields flared and failed under the assault, but not before it managed to trigger an alarm. "Change of plans," Elena barked into her comm. "Forget stealth. We bring this whole damn place down now." What followed was a chaotic running battle through the twisting corridors of the Zarkai base. Elena's team fought with a ferocity born of righteous anger and desperation, their new weapons proving their worth as Zarkai warriors fell before them. As they fought their way back to the extraction point, Elena found herself face to face with another of the larger Zarkai, this one adorned with elaborate markings that suggested high rank. For a moment, they locked eyes, or what passed for eyes on the alien's insectoid face. In that instant, Elena saw something she hadn't expected. Fear. The Zarkai, for all their technological might and cold cruelty, had never faced an enemy like humanity before. An enemy that, when pushed to the brink, pushed back with unmatched ferocity and ingenuity. With a primal yell, Elena emptied her phantom's clip into the Zarkai commander, watching with grim satisfaction as it crumpled to the ground. "That's for Nova Prime," she snarled. Moments later, they were back aboard the Nemesis, watching through the viewscreen as the Zarkai base erupted in a series of massive explosions. As the structure broke apart, spilling its contents into the cold void of space, Elena felt a complex mix of emotions: satisfaction, grief, and a steely resolve. Admiral Chen's voice came over the comm, tight with barely contained excitement. "Nemesis, report. Did we succeed?" Elena took a deep breath, looking at her battered but triumphant team. "Sir, Operation Nemesis is a go. We've struck the first blow. And we've sent the Zarkai a message they won't soon forget." As the Nemesis sped back towards Earth, Elena allowed herself a small, fierce smile. This was just the beginning. The Zarkai had awoken a sleeping giant, And now the entire galaxy would bear witness to humanity's indomitable spirit. The war for survival had begun, and humanity did not intend to go quietly into the night. The Zarkai counterattack. The successful strike against the Zarkai forward base sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the seemingly invincible empire had tasted defeat. But if humanity thought this would cow their enemy into submission, they were gravely mistaken. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood before the Imperial War Council, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights of the Zarkai throne world. His compound eyes swept across the assembled generals, taking in their agitated movements and the rapid clicking of their mandibles. The humans, Vexthor began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into a cold, synthetic voice, have proven to be more resilient than anticipated. Our attack on their colony was meant to exterminate a nuisance. Instead, we have roused a hive of unexpectedly clever vermin. He called up a holographic display of the destroyed forward base. Their tactics were unorthodox. Their technology, while primitive, has been adapted in ways we did not foresee. This will not stand. The War Council erupted into a cacophony of alien sounds, each general offering their own strategy for crushing the human resistance. Vexthor let them argue for a moment before raising a clawed appendage for silence. "We will not make the mistake of underestimating these creatures again," he declared. "I am hereby ordering a full-scale assault on all known human colonies. We will crush their will to resist and then systematically eradicate their species from the galaxy." As the Zarkai war machine rumbled to life, humanity braced for the coming storm. The attack, when it came, was even more devastating than they had feared. On Earth, Commander Elena Reeves stood in Central Command, watching with growing horror as reports flooded in from across human space. The Zarkai had struck a dozen colonies simultaneously, their forces seemingly endless. "Arcadia is under heavy bombardment," an officer reported, his voice strained. "New Eden has gone dark. We've lost contact with Elysium Station." Admiral Chen, his face haggard from sleepless nights, turned to Elena. "They're trying to replicate what they did on Nova Prime. Hit us so hard and so fast that we have no chance to recover." Elena nodded grimly. "But this time, we're not caught completely off guard. Our new defense systems are online. We've evacuated as many civilians as we could to hardened shelters. We can weather this storm." Even as she spoke, another officer called out, "Sir, we're picking up a massive Zarkai fleet on approach to the Arcturus system. They'll be in range of our outer colonies there within hours." Chen's eyes met Elena's. They both knew what this meant. Arcturus was one of humanity's most important strongholds, a linchpin in their defensive strategy. If it fell, the path to Earth itself would be wide open. "Prep the fleet," Chen ordered. "We make our stand at Arcturus. Commander Reeves, I want you on the flagship. Your experience fighting the Zarkai up close will be invaluable." As they raced towards Arcturus aboard the UES Thermopylae, humanity's most advanced battleship, Elena briefed the fleet commanders on what to expect. "The Zarkai rely heavily on swarm tactics," she explained. "They'll try to overwhelm our defenses through sheer numbers. But their individual ships are less maneuverable than ours. Use that to your advantage." The battle that unfolded in the Arcturus system would later be remembered as one of the most pivotal engagements in human history. The sky above Arcturus Prime lit up with the fires of 1,000 explosions as human and Zarkai ships clashed in a deadly dance. Elena found herself in the thick of the fighting, coordinating strike teams, and calling out Zarkai formations. The innovations born from Operation Nemesis were proving their worth. Human ships, though outnumbered, were holding their own against the alien swarms. But the tide of battle ebbed and flowed. For every Zarkai ship they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Elena watched with a mix of pride and anguish as human captains pulled off daring maneuvers, some sacrificing themselves to take out key enemy vessels. "We can't keep this up forever." Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "We need to find a way to turn the tide decisively." Elena's mind raced. analyzing the Zarkai attack patterns. There was something familiar about their formations, something she had seen in the data recovered from the forward base. Suddenly, it clicked. "Admiral," she called out, "I think I've identified their command ship. It's that large vessel at the center of their formation. If we can take it out, we might be able to throw their entire force into disarray." Chen didn't hesitate. "Do it. Take whatever resources you need." What followed was a daring assault that would become legendary in the annals of human military history. Alina led a small team of elite pilots in a series of micro-jumps, using the chaos of the battle to mask their approach. They weaved through the Zarkai formation, their ship's new cloaking technology keeping them hidden until the last possible moment. As they closed in on the massive Zarkai command ship, Alina felt a surge of fierce determination. This was for Nova Prime, for all the human lives lost, for the future of their species. "All ships, fire everything you've got," she ordered. The space around the Zarkai command ship erupted in a firestorm of human weaponry. Missiles designed to penetrate Zarkai shields found their mark. Energy weapons overloaded alien systems. For a moment, it seemed as if space itself was tearing apart around the massive vessel. When the chaos cleared, the Zarkai command ship was a floating wreck, venting atmosphere and debris. Almost immediately, the cohesion of the alien fleet began to falter. "Press the advantage," Chen roared over the fleet-wide channel. "Don't let up." The battle raged for hours more, but the destruction of their command ship had thrown the Zarkai into disarray. Slowly but surely, humanity began to push them back. As the last of the alien ships fled the system, a ragged cheer went up across the human fleet. They had done it. Against all odds, they had stood against the full might of the Zarkai Empire and emerged victorious. But Alina felt no elation as she stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae, watching the debris of friend and foe alike drift through space. This was just one battle, and the war was far from over. The Zarkai would be back, and they would be even more determined to wipe humanity from the face of the galaxy. As if reading her thoughts, Admiral Chen approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We've bought ourselves some time," he said quietly. "But you're right, this isn't over. Not by a long shot." Alina nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the viewscreen. "No, it's not. But we've shown them that humanity won't go down without a fight. And we've given hope to every species that suffered under Zarkai oppression." She turned to Chen, her eyes blazing with determination. "This is just the beginning, Admiral. The Zarkai thought they could break us. Instead, they've unleashed something they could never have anticipated. They wanted a war. We'll give them a war they'll never forget." As the battered human fleet regrouped and began the process of securing the Arcturus system, news of their victory spread like wildfire across human space and beyond. In hidden corners of the galaxy, oppressed species began to whisper of resistance, of a force that could stand against the Zarkai Empire. The battle for survival had been joined, and humanity had no intention of fading quietly into the night. The galaxy was about to learn just how fierce humanity could be when pushed to the brink. Unexpected allies and turning tides. In the wake of the Battle of Arcturus, a fragile hope began to blossom across human space. For the first time since the massacre at Nova Prime, humanity dared to believe that survival, and perhaps even victory, might be possible. But Commander Alina Reeves knew better than to let optimism cloud her judgment. The Zarkai Empire still held dominion over vast swaths of the galaxy, and their resources dwarfed those of humanity. It was during a routine reconnaissance mission in a supposedly uninhabited system that everything changed. Alina's ship, the UES Pathfinder, stumbled upon something unexpected, signs of an advanced civilization that had clearly been trying to remain hidden. "Commander," her sensor officer called out, "I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures from the third planet. They're not like anything we've seen before." Alina leaned forward, studying the readouts. "Not Zarkai." "No, Mom. The patterns are completely different. And there's something else. I'm detecting low-level communications. They're encrypted, but the encryption doesn't match any known Zarkai protocols. A spark of excitement ignited in Alina's chest. Could it be? Had they stumbled upon another spacefaring race, one that had managed to avoid the Zarkai's notice? "Take us in closer," she ordered, "but maintain stealth protocols. If there's someone down there, they might not be friendly." As the Pathfinder entered orbit, the planet's surface came into clearer view. At first glance, it appeared uninhabited. Dense forests and vast oceans dominated the landscape, but as they scanned more closely, they began to detect signs of advanced technology hidden beneath the canopy. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple ships decloaking. The tactical officer shouted, "They've got us surrounded." Alina's hand hovered over the weapons controls, her mind racing. If these were Zarkai, they were done for. But something told her to wait. A transmission crackled through their comms. The language was unlike anything Alina had ever heard, but the universal translator quickly began to decipher it. "Unknown vessel," the voice spoke, its tones melodic yet filled with tension. "You have entered protected space. Identify yourselves, or be destroyed." Alina took a deep breath. This was a pivotal moment, one that could shape the course of the war. "This is Commander Elena Reeves of the United Earth ship Pathfinder. We come in peace, seeking allies against the Zarkai Empire." There was a long pause, and Alina could almost feel the shock emanating from the alien ships surrounding them. Finally, the voice spoke again, this time with a note of cautious hope. "Humans, you fought the Zarkai and survived." Over the next few hours, a remarkable first contact unfolded. The aliens called themselves the Nexari, a highly advanced race that had been hiding from the Zarkai for centuries. They invited Alina and a small team down to the planet's surface, where they were led to a stunning underground city, its architecture a blend of organic forms and crystalline structures. The Nexari leader, a tall, ethereal being named Zilvera, greeted them in a grand chamber. "For eons, we have hidden," she explained, her large, luminous eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. "We watched as the Zarkai consumed world after world. We thought resistance was futile. But you, humans, you have done what we thought impossible. You have given the galaxy hope." Elena felt the weight of the moment. "We've bloodied their nose," she admitted, "but the war is far from over. We're outgunned and outnumbered. We came looking for allies, for any advantage we could find against the Zarkai." Zilvera nodded solemnly. "Perhaps it is time for the Nexari to emerge from the shadows. But we are not warriors, Commander Reeves. Our strengths lie in technology, in the manipulation of energy and matter in ways your people might consider magical." As discussions continued, it became clear that an alliance between humans and Nexari could be a game-changer. The Nexari's advanced technology, combined with humanity's fierce determination and tactical innovations, had the potential to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Word of this new alliance spread quickly, carried through hidden channels and whispered networks. Other races, long oppressed or in hiding from the Zarkai, began to reach out. The Croath, a warrior race whose homeworld had been stripped bare by the Zarkai centuries ago. The Veil Collective, a group of interconnected AIs that had been waging a silent war in the Empire's computer systems. The Zur, nomadic energy beings who could possess and control machinery. What had begun as humanity's desperate fight for survival was rapidly evolving into a galactic liberation front. Admiral Chen could hardly believe the reports coming in. "A month ago, we were on the brink of extinction," he mused, looking out over the assembled representatives of a dozen alien races in the hastily constructed Alliance headquarters. "Now we're leading a coalition to topple an empire." Elena nodded, feeling the mix of pride and trepidation. "It won't be easy. The Zarkai still outnumber us, and they'll fight to the bitter end. But for the first time, I think we have a real chance. The newly formed Galactic Liberation Front wasted no time in launching its first major offensive. With the Nexary's cloaking technology and the Veil Collective's ability to hack Zarkai systems, they were able to strike at the heart of the Empire's supply lines. Elena found herself leading the Joint Task Force, coordinating attacks across 3 sectors simultaneously. Human ships fought alongside Croeth battlecruisers, while Zir entities possessed and turned Zarkai automation against its masters. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos, driven by a shared purpose that transcended species and culture. The Zarkai, caught off guard by this sudden, multi-pronged assault, began to falter. For the first time in living memory, they were forced to abandon entire systems, pulling back to protect their core worlds. But it was a human innovation, born from the crucible of desperation, that truly turned the tide. Dr. Aisha Patel, working in conjunction with Nexari scientists, had made a breakthrough in understanding Zarkai biology. They had developed a weapon that could target the pheromones the insectoid aliens use to communicate and coordinate. It won't kill them, Dr. Patel explained as Elena examined the unassuming canister, but it will throw their entire command structure into disarray. They won't be able to trust their own senses, their own instincts. The weapon was deployed in a daring raid on a major Zarkai fleet anchorage. Elena watched from the bridge of her flagship as the massive alien ships began to move erratically, colliding with each other or firing on friendly vessels. It was almost pitiful, watching the once mighty armada descend into chaos. As the battle raged, Elena received a priority transmission. A Nexari deep cover operative had managed to infiltrate a high-level Zarkai command post. They had uncovered something shocking. Evidence that the Zarkai leadership had known about other advanced civilizations in the galaxy all along. The attack on Nova Prime hadn't just been about eliminating a potential threat. It had been meant to draw these hidden races out of hiding. They wanted to provoke a response. Elena realized, her mind reeling. They were willing to slaughter children just to flush out potential rivals. The revelation sent a shockwave through the Alliance. Any lingering doubts about the necessity of their fight were erased. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice, about ensuring that no other race would ever suffer as they had under Zarkai tyranny. As the battle drew to a close, with the Zarkai forces in full retreat, Elena stood on the observation deck of her ship, watching the stars. They seemed different now, full of possibility rather than threat. Admiral Chen joined her, his weathered face showing signs of cautious optimism. "We've dealt them a serious blow," he said, "but you know they'll regroup. This war is far from over." Elena nodded, her eyes still fixed on the vast expanse before them. "No, it's not over. But for the first time, I can see a path to victory. Not just for humanity, but for every race that suffered under the Zarkai." She turned to Chen, her expression resolute. "We've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of when pushed to the brink. Now it's time to show them what we can do when we're fighting not just for ourselves, but for a future where all sentient beings can live free from tyranny." As they stood there, contemplating the battles yet to come, a message flashed across the ship's communication system. The Alliance Council was convening an emergency session. Intelligence suggested that the Zarkai were planning something big, a last desperate gambit to crush the rebellion once and for all. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and it promised to be the most challenging yet. But as Elena prepared to face whatever the Zarkai might throw at them, she felt a sense of unshakable determination. Humanity had come too far, sacrificed too much, to falter now. The stars beckoned, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. It was time to end this war, once and for all. The final push and aftermath. The war room of the Alliance flagship hummed with tension as representatives from a dozen species pored over intelligence reports. At the center of it all stood Commander Elena Reeves, her face illuminated by the holographic display of Zarkai space. "This is it," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. The Zarkai are massing their forces for one final push. They mean to end this war in one fell swoop. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. They're desperate. Our latest strikes have crippled their supply lines and shattered their aura of invincibility. But a cornered beast is often the most dangerous. Zilvera, the Nexari leader, stepped forward, her ethereal form shimmering slightly. Our deep cover operatives have confirmed the worst. The Zarkai plan to unleash a weapon of unimaginable power, one capable of sterilizing entire star systems. A murmur of horror rippled through the assembled leaders. Alina felt a chill run down her spine as she remembered the devastation of Nova Prime. If the Zarkai were willing to go to such lengths, the entire galaxy was at risk. "We have no choice," Alina declared, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We must launch a preemptive strike on their homeworld. End this war before they can unleash this weapon." The plan that emerged was audacious, perhaps even suicidal. But it was their only hope. The Alliance would commit every ship, every soldier, every resource they had to a massive assault on the Zarkai throne world. It would be all or nothing. As the fleets assembled, Alina found herself aboard the UES Nemesis once more, leading the vanguard of the attack. The ship had been upgraded with the best technology the Alliance had to offer. Nexari cloaking fields, Croath battle armor, and weapons systems that melded human ingenuity with alien science. "All ships, report in," Alina called out as they approached the jump point. One by one, vessel after vessel signaled their readiness. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the galaxy, a testament to the unity forged in the crucible of war. With a flash of energy that momentarily outshone the stars themselves, the Alliance Armada jumped into Zarkai space. The battle was joined almost immediately, as swarms of enemy ships rose to meet them. The space around the Zarkai homeworld erupted into chaos. Energy beams lanced across the void, missiles streaked between ships, and fighters engaged in desperate dogfights. Alina coordinated the attack with a calm born of years of combat experience, guiding the Alliance forces through the maelstrom. But the Zarkai fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. Despite the Alliance's superior tactics and technology, the sheer numbers of the enemy threatened to overwhelm them. "We're taking heavy losses in Sector 7. A Croath captain bellowed over the comms. "We can't hold this position much longer." Alina gritted her teeth, watching as friendly ships winked out of existence on her tactical display. They were so close to breaking through, but the cost was proving astronomical. It was in this darkest moment that humanity's indomitable spirit shone brightest. From the rear of the formation, a battered Earth ship, the UES Alamo, suddenly accelerated to full speed. Its captain's voice crackled over the comms. "For Nova Prime. For Earth. For the future." With that, the Alamo plowed into the heart of the Zarkai formation, its reactor going critical in a blinding explosion that ripped a hole in the enemy lines. "All ships, push through," Alina ordered, seizing the moment. "This is our chance." The Alliance fleet surged forward, pouring through the gap created by the Alamo's sacrifice. Alina felt a mix of grief and fierce pride. This was humanity at its best, willing to lay down everything for a cause greater than themselves. As they broke through the orbital defenses, Alina led a strike team to the surface of the Zarkai homeworld. The alien city that sprawled before them was like nothing she had ever seen, a twisted labyrinth of organic architecture and pulsing technology. Fighting their way through waves of defenders, Alina and her team pushed towards the central citadel, where Supreme Commander Vexthor was coordinating the Zarkai defense. The battle was brutal, hand-to-hand combat against an enemy that showed no mercy and expected none in return. Finally, they breached the inner sanctum. Alina found herself face to face with Vexthor, the architect of so much suffering. The Zarkai leader was massive, his carapace scarred from countless battles. "You," Vexthor clicked, his translator rendering the sound into a hateful snarl. "The human who dared to challenge the natural order. Do you realize what you've done? The chaos you've unleashed upon the galaxy?" Elena stood her ground, her weapon trained on the alien leader. "We've given hope to the oppressed. We've shown that tyranny can be overthrown, no matter how powerful the tyrant." Vexthor's mandibles clacked in what might have been laughter. "And what will you do now, human? Slaughter us as we slaughtered your young. Prove that you're no better than us." For a moment, Elena was tempted. The memory of Nova Prime, of her sister and niece, burned in her mind. But then she thought of everything they had fought for, the alliance they had built. "No," she said finally, "we're not like you. You'll face justice for your crimes, but it will be justice, not vengeance." What followed was not the execution Vexthor expected, but his capture. As news of the Supreme Commander's defeat spread, Zarkai resistance crumbled. Within hours, the war that had raged across the galaxy for years was over. The aftermath was a time of both celebration and solemn reflection. The cost had been staggering. Entire worlds laid waste, billions of lives lost across dozens of species. But from the ashes of conflict, a new galactic order began to emerge. The Alliance, forged in war, now turned its efforts to peace. Representatives from every sentient species gathered to form a galactic council, dedicated to ensuring that no empire would ever again threaten the freedom of others. Elena found herself hailed as a hero, not just by humanity, but by countless races across the stars. But as she stood before the newly formed council, she felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. "We've won our freedom," she addressed the assembled delegates, "but now comes the hard part. We must build a future worthy of those we've lost. A future where the diversity of life in this galaxy is celebrated, not feared. Where cooperation and understanding replace conquest and oppression." As she spoke, Elena's gaze swept across the chamber, taking in the varied forms of the alien representatives. She saw determination in their eyes, a shared commitment to forging a better future. "The Zarkai believed that strength came from domination," she continued. "We've proved them wrong. Our strength comes from our unity, from the bonds we've forged across the stars. Let that be the foundation of our new galactic community." In the years that followed, the galaxy underwent a transformation. The former Zarkai Empire was dismantled, its resources used to rebuild devastated worlds. Earth, once a backwater on the fringes of known space, became a beacon of hope and a center of interstellar diplomacy. Elena, for her part, found that peacetime presented challenges as daunting as any she had faced in war. But as she worked to help shape this new galactic society, she often thought back to where it all began, to Nova Prime, to the terrible price paid to reach this point. One evening, years after the war's end, Elena stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. The stars stretched out before her, no longer a realm of terror and conflict, but a vista of endless possibility. A young alien child, part of a diplomatic delegation, approached her curiously. "Are you the human who helped save the galaxy?" the child asked, its translator rendering its chirps into English. Elena smiled, kneeling down to the child's level. "No, little one. I was just one of many. It was all of us, working together, who saved the galaxy, and it's all of us who will keep it safe." As she gazed back out at the stars, Elena felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity's journey among the stars was only just beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that the spirit that had carried them through their darkest hour would light the way forward. The Zarkai had sought to extinguish humanity's light. Instead, they had ignited a beacon that would shine across the cosmos for generations to come.